Yo,
All right, just want to make sure that we are up there. Okay, looks good. Okay, hi, Chester. Thank you so much for being here.
thanks for having me. That was fun to watch those back to back. I've never done that before.
Hell yeah. All right, so I'm gonna ask you a few questions, and then before the last one, I'm gonna let the audience know, and y'all can ask any questions you have for Chester. Okay, so Chester, tell me a little bit about your art practice. I know it's not just film, right? And so I'm curious to see how film fits in with all of it. I know you do performance and photo and a lot of everything.
Yeah, I feel like at the moment it's been pretty film heavy, but I feel like all of the other work and like mediums I was working in previous to beginning to work in film kind of like they all fit in, like, like photography, like obviously in terms of like framing and composition and like, the ideas behind the photographs, it's definitely like a part of filmmaking. But I don't know, I feel like every medium I branched off into and like explored during grad school like gave me like a new or like another tool that like once I had them all assembled like made the transition to filmmaking feel pretty natural. So I feel like at the moment like maybe I'm just a filmmaker. I still think I'm an artist and I like to make other things, but most of the stuff I've made has like turned into films, but I think that there's like moments of the different mediums where there's still like I don't know, like the Tesla toucher thing, which I don't know if we really talked about. We talked about that at all? It was like an
I
Instagram
don't
page I
think
had
so.
called the Tesla toucher, where I was just like every Tesla I saw in LA, I'd like go up to it and like rub it and film myself doing it for like 2 years. Um, so that was kind of like the I guess like the
The
prelude
performance
or like the
aspect.
prologue to Ruby. So like that was more performative, but then
Well,
it,
you also
it led
had,
into the film.
I was saying you also had that piece where you went door to door in Silver Lake and thanked people for having Black Lives Matter signs, which was like
Yeah.
incredible. So yeah, I
So
see that
so
going hand in hand.
so I guess there's like maybe like I have to like embody the characters in a way and perform, and then I make a movie about it, I guess. I don't know if that's been everything so far, but yeah, I guess perform they're very like closely related and yeah, intertwined. This is one thing about I never thought I think about everything so separately. So
Well, yeah, that's really funny to think of like different parts of your like very good contemporary art practice just being like being an outline to something that becomes a film later. That's really interesting.
yeah.
Um,
Huh.
okay,
This is fun to think about.
so could you tell me a little bit, if, like elevator pitch each one of these shorts? Like, what do you want to say about them?
Uh well, I'm so sorry came from me uh attempting to purchase Black Lives Matter signs to like make film another sketch. So like I actually was these characters, but I was just like finding myself judging these signs for different reasons and I was like, "Oh man, like this is really backwards and shitty." Like I'm sure other people have had this experience and I don't know, like after making the film, it's been really interesting because so many people are like, "Wow, you could buy signs." Like it's like we see them everywhere, but no one thinks about like where they come from. So it was fun to kind of like, yeah, like have that real experience of being one of the characters and like sifting through these signs and being like, that one's ugly or like that one's like too expensive. Um, and then like again, like kind of turning up like the heat on it and kind of thinking of like the most uncomfortable like heightened situation, I guess. Like who would be like the most uncomfortable buying this sign or have like the most not at stake, but like uh the most like I don't know exactly the word. Uh the most reasons to purchase a thing and also like the least amount of reasons at the same time. Like that you like desperately need to show your solidarity, but also like maybe you shouldn't be doing this. Is like the most complexity, I guess. Like the character that like this act like holds the most contradiction
Mhm.
for I'm so sorry. And then Ruby, yeah, again, I think it just started in like that one started definitely in like a more absurd place, and then it's kind of like leads into another question, and then like I had to kind of like work backwards and figure out who the character was. But it was me again finding myself like drawn to these cars, and I was like, yeah, these cars are kind of sexy. Like I like the way these things look, and that's by design. The cars are like attractive, and they have their curves, but also like they also symbolize like luxury, and like I think they also like they're like it's like capitalism in disguise almost. You can kind of just like mask it, like capitalism and like luxury, like masked behind like it's like eco consumerism or something, or like eco capitalism. So you can kind of just be like, no, I just care about the environment, but it's also like, nah, like that's not it. That's not all it is. So again, I think there's like just trying to hold that contradiction. Like that's kind of like a through line of the films too, of like hating the thing, but also like loving and like empathizing with the desire for the thing. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And yeah, it's interesting because this is helping me draw a lot of parallels between um, the two.
This is
So,
helpful for me too. Like this is really the first time because normally I'm just like everything I make is so different and like they're not related, but it's nice to have a chance to connect dots.
hell yeah. um, so in both Ruby and in I'm so sorry, you kind of brush up against and point out the absurdity of how much the things we buy become part of us, our identities, and how they define us. Can you talk about this a little more? I know you already started talking about it a bit.
Yeah. It's like the like most obvious part of the films, but I haven't really. I don't know if I have a good answer. I'm trying to. Yeah, I don't know. We just confronted with a lot of stuffs, and yeah, I don't know if I have like great.
That's totally fine.
Yeah, there's just I don't have like an intelligent answer, but the stuff's important, and the stuff that we choose to like surround ourselves with, or post online, it's more of a virtual stuff that like we're all kind of I think trying to build like our image through the things that we purchase and wear
I guess
and
there's this kind of like trap. Sorry, there's like a bit of a lag, and I'm realizing I'm interrupting you, so I'm sorry.
no, you're good. I think I'm thinking through it. I think also part of it has to do with uh like I think both films relate to like virtue signaling in a certain way, and I also think moving to LA like you like signal in a different way. Like one, just like the cars you drive, like say a lot about you because like that might be the only like time you see certain people. They're like living behind, there's a lot of like gates and like people have their like fences and like you're private in a different way than in other cities. Maybe it's like the button that you wear or like the clothing says more. But I feel like in LA, like property is like so much more like distinguished
Mhm.
and like and like the private. Um, and the car as well. So I guess we have like bubbles in a different kind of way out here. So I guess both films in a way are like they're very LA, or they're like very much a product of me moving here and like noticing those things because I don't think on the East Coast like the car you drive says the same thing. And also like what you put outside your house doesn't say the same thing.
But I think something is like, we were talking a bit before off camera, um, about how you have empathy for these characters, right? And I'm kind of like robbing from a question I have earlier, but it's like, yes, like there is this like tongue in cheek part that's like, oh, how ridiculous that, like with the car and the signs and everything. But there's also like this aspect of like, yes, what you're buying does say quite a bit about you. You know what I mean? Whether or not it's like this really intentional thing of like, I'm buying this, I'm wearing this shirt because I want people to see this, but like it, so there is like this virtue signaling thing, but there is also the actuality of like where you're spending your money and like, I don't know. So I mean, they're just linked.
Totally. Yeah,
So,
no, very, very related, and I think we're all in some way like caught up in that, like trying to be ourselves, be genuine, like not care about what other people think, but also we deeply care about it. Um, yeah, I feel like that like that's the space that the films sit in, and like kind of what I'm trying to, I guess, get at with the characters is not just like point the finger or make them like ridiculous, but like tie
mhm.
it back to like a relatable like feeling of I think a lot of it comes back to like this like social like paralysis, like doomed if you do, doomed if you don't, almost like with the signs. It's like you get a sign, like, no, you shouldn't have that. But if you don't, you're not doing enough. And like similar, I mean, the Ruby's a little bit different, but I think in both situations, like capitalism like puts us in like a weird spot where like you have to partake in some kind of manner.
Well,
Um,
it's capitalism and then the like the endless opinion on everything with the internet. You know what I mean?
for sure,
Like
yeah,
with the it's like, do I post about this or do I not post about this? If I post about this, I'm virtue signaling potentially. If I don't, I'm not using my platform. You know what I mean? And then there's always like the and you know, I don't think everybody confronts this like situation where they're like called out and you know constantly, but there is because of internet culture that there's like the feeling of this like threat that every move you make and everything you buy is being judged by everybody. So I don't
yeah, totally.
know. Anyway, speaking of things and what they say about us, the set design on both of these to me was like one of my favorite parts. And so I mean, with like the girls in Silver Lake, it was really heavy-handed. There's like the Ruth Bader Ginsburg poster on the fridge and the salt lamp, and I'm pretty sure I saw like a mandala somewhere. But then in Ruby, it was more subtle. You know, you had this guy whose ID, like caller ID for his mom, was mother, and his like perfectly clean car, and everything was just like crisp and nice. And so, how did you conceive these characters? I know you've already touched on this, so if you want, you can
Yeah,
like.
no, no, this is a cool thing. I really only thought about it with, or like thought about it after the fact with, um, I'm so sorry, because I think that is like one of the most important parts of that film was like making those characters feel real. And shout out to my friend V Haddad who like really crushed it with art direction and set design. It was like so perfect, and I definitely couldn't have done that on my own. But yeah, it was like making them feel real and like really dropping you into a world and allowing that the like production design to speak, so I don't need to like explain a lot of things to like kind of like let you know like who these characters are, how old they are, where they live, how they feel about certain things. Like I could kind of just like dive into the film without needing to like
Mhm.
explain really. And you're not wondering like who are these people, you kind of just like are able to relate to them. And then yeah, with Ruby, I really don't. I'm glad you enjoyed the set design in that one because I think it's a lot more understated. But again, excuse me, it was really about yeah, just giving the viewer more as much information as possible without needing to explain it in dialogue. So, and again, I think part of that is like that's like the photographic background of like what's in the frame, what's being communicated in like an individual image. And yeah, it was getting this like really clean, manicured, like put together character, and like also just like thinking a lot about like what does the world of Tesla feel like? I feel like I had that conversation with like the sound mixer, my friend who scored the film, the colorist, like everything was just like, what is Tesla? And it's like clean, it's like really like sharp, modern. It's like there's like all the lenses that we chose to shoot the film were like most like, true to color, like not a lot of like distortion on them. It was just like everything like the Tesla kind of for lack of a better word, it like drove all the decisions that were being made. Um, and that was fun to like have that North Star and all those different like components of the film.
Well, it's really interesting because, like, as you're saying this, I'm realizing, like, um, both of these, like if we're talking of like the Tesla guy archetype and the salt lamp girl archetype, it's funny because, like, in so many ways, the visual language outside of just the set design, but I think of kind of like how it's cut and like color corrected, they kind of like each read as like ads for that lifestyle. You know what I mean? Like, I think like they're both shot pretty differently, and like so it's funny to like to see them as like an ad when we're kind of talking of this like
Mm,
undercurrent about of like consumerism. So I don't know. That's
yeah. No, that's really interesting because I'm also in this period uh of my practice where I'm like, yo, I'm trying to get commercial work. Speaking of capitalism, where like I want to be able to like explore storytelling in that way and also like pay bills and be able to like keep making these films. And I've been telling myself and talking with friends, and I'm like, I don't really have anything that functions as like a work sample commercially. Like I don't have a commercial reel. I have these films, so I it's very not empowering, but it just feels good to have you like connect that dot. Be like, kind of look like commercials. Because I do think like the right person saw like Ruby, they could be like, oh, this guy could shoot a car pretty well. Like car looks good. Like give him a car commercial. Like that'd be pretty cool.
yeah. You should
And
send that to Tesla. See what they say.
yeah, right. I know. I like feel like Elon would like love it or like either issue like a cease and desist.
Exactly. He would ban you from something. I don't know.
Yeah. I kind of think they'd be into it.
Yeah,
I
I
think
think
this I want the film to like live online soon because I think it'd be fun to have it out there. But yeah, and even like reflecting on pieces some current work that I'm finishing up, I do feel like every story and like set of characters like has like a very specific aesthetic, and I think I'm interested in leaning into that more so than like my own personal like
mm, mm.
sensibility, which is also like kind of anxiety inducing because I feel like a lot of right now is like, what's your brand? Or at least that's my like own, but that's my pressure on myself. I'm just like, how am I branding myself? Like, if someone's like, what is Chester Toy? What kind of work does Chester Toy make? And everything like looks very different. I think there are some people that just see that as like someone who's like scattered or unfocused. That's my own anxiety. I think it's a little bit true, but I'm like, damn, everything looks and feels so different. But hopefully, when everything there's more work, things there could be some through lines, or the right people can just see like, all right, he's like calibrating to something different every time, and there's value in that.
Totally.
Um, no,
I
I'm
really
glad you
relate
think I
to
could do an ad.
that
That feels
anxiety.
good.
Good. Yeah, I really relate to that anxiety actually. So like, I'm definitely gonna like text you later to talk about this because
Yeah, right. Like
yeah,
video game, like you're making new worlds in video games. Like,
I'm like
how does that feel for you? How does that fit into practice?
dude, I don't even know. I feel like I'm like I feel like jack of all trades, master of none. Like I feel like I'm like half-assing a lot of different things because I just like can't focus. But it's fun. I mean, I'm learning a lot, but whatever. um, but okay, so I want to just tell the audience real quick, guys. I have about one more question. Oh, actually, somebody just asked one, so I'll ask that before I ask my next one. They said it was kind of spooky for me. Do you have a special inspiration for the tension of the constant messages?
It was spooky inspiration. After making, I'm gonna try and get to the answer, so I might talk around it for a little bit. I never thought about myself as making like work that had proximity to like horror. Uh, but the more work I've made recently, more people react to it in that way, or like I think it's just deeply uncomfortable and unsettling. And I don't know if I have an inspiration. I think part of it's probably just like channeling some of the anxiety that I share with these characters, and this feeling of like not being able to do make like a decision that will please everyone. It's kind of this feeling of being stuck. So I think I think that's probably it, and I also don't really believe in, like, clean, happy endings, like, I think, there's more conversation to be had, so I think keeping and like, sustaining tension, um, is important. Yeah, like, kinda just, like, ending on a question mark, so I think, yeah, keeping the tension up is important, but I don't think as an inspiration, I think I'm learning that myself, that that's my tendency, like, I'm so sorry to someone like, "Whoa, this gave me, like, horror vibes," and I was like, "What?" I didn't get it, but it got programmed in, like, a late night or, like, an after dark block at a film festival with, like, other films that were, like, more straightforward horror, and then Ruby was in, like, a late night block with, like, other, like, horror or like, horror adjacent films, and that same person that was like, "Oh, horror movie vibes" from I'm So Sorry was just like, "Haha," like, so disturbing to Ruby, and, I don't know, I guess just, like, I have parts of me that maybe I'm scared of, and, like, I think shame's, like, also, like, in a part of
Right.
both of the films, and I think that feeling of, like, shame is something that, they can't not make it into the work because I think it's, like, fueling the ideas, so maybe it's less so, like, an inspiration, but just, like, it's baked into the, like, core ideas being explored in both films, like, there's shame in there, and shame is, like, yucky,
Yeah,
it
of
doesn't feel
course.
good.
Well, it's funny because like I think yeah, like the things that are like scary about this are like yeah, like the text messages. Like it's funny because I didn't initially read it as horror, but like yeah, I totally see that. I kind of perceived it as drama, but like now that yeah, yes, like it's a horror movie in some ways, and it's funny because it's
In some
like
ways,
the
but also yeah,
wall of
it's a lot of things.
yeah, and it's like the wall of like the ding ding ding, or like the wall of text, or like waiting for a wall of text. Like that's like real life everyday horror. You know what I mean? And then there's shame. It's this is kind of like central emotion um, that is also terrifying and just like eats away at you. So like yeah, if that's a big chunk of the movie, then like of course it'll read as um, horror. So that's
Yeah.
they say
Thank you
thank
for
you.
asking that question.
Yeah, they say interesting. Thank you for answering. All right, so I have one more question, and if anybody else has something to ask, just like go ahead in the chat. So my last one is okay, and again we sort of like touched on all this, but another thing I noticed that while I was watching Ruby is that it was framed as an affair, like this kind of tragic, life altering thing happening. And then, it's like, oh, ha ha ha, this guy is named Elon. He was fucking his car. Like, this is funny. This is a comedy, right? And so the framing as an affair obviously makes it all a bit funnier at the end, but initially it creates like space or asks for sympathy from the viewer. And so, can you talk about this? Like, is it necessary for you to have sympathy for a character? And like, what is it like trying to find sympathy for characters that are actually kind of like unlikable, like the girls? And I'm so sorry. Is there sympathy there?
I really want there to be, and I think that's another thing that I've learned just through making, um, like, I'm like a softie, I'm, like, very sensitive, like, I'm very cynical, but when it comes to, like, real people, like, I think I hold a lot of space for people to, like, make mistakes or be shit. I don't know, like, people are like, life is hard, like, people are complicated, so I think if I wanna, like, rush to judge, I really try and, like, slow that down, even if I've, like, maybe done a bit more judging, like, when I'm writing a script or, like, shooting a film, like, in the edit, like, it's really important for me to, like, not create, like, a one-dimensional character or just, like, you know, throwing someone into the fire. Well, I literally guess I threw this character into a type of fire in Ruby. Um, but it's just not interesting to just like point fingers at like a character. It's just like boring. Like, why make a movie for just bad, 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 bad? Like, I think I'm so sorry. I made that because I've found myself in this situation. So I think like there's like a part of me in all the characters, and like I guess like I want people to like give me the benefit of the doubt, even if I'm like maybe not making the perfect decision or like in between. So like I think I try and do the same for the characters. Um, I think part of it's also like, with like film, you're dealing with like actors who are also like real people. Like, the actor in Ruby, like he has a family, like he's married, he has like kids, and like I also just don't want to make something that makes someone look crazy or bad, or yeah. I also like do people's performances like a lot of justice. Yeah, and I kind of want people to have to come up with their own like own judgment on a person. So I think ideally, like, you present someone going through something, or like in a state of paralysis, and maybe like once the film's over you can decide if you want to empathize with the person or not. But I don't want my film to kind of like just put them into one corner. Like I hope that there's like balance. um yeah, it's like very, very important, especially in I'm So Sorry as well, because like i'm not I'm not a woman.
Mm.
I'm uh some would say that as a black man, like maybe I do have the right to like demonize like white women, but like I don't think that's interesting again. And I also like don't that's not my experience. So I also like, I don't know, I just think you gotta be really, uh it's gotta have like love, I think, for the characters. I just don't want to like have like any like pure hate, I think,
Right.
going out. Yeah, it's tricky. It's
And
tricky because, yeah, I don't know.
I mean, I think it's interesting. Like, I mean, so to the audience, Chester and I met at like an open house for a photo program. Or was it? It was at SAIC. Okay.
Yeah,
And so it's interesting because like I
over 4 years ago. That's
yeah.
crazy.
um, but this is like something I think a lot about with photo, where it's like photo has like a very violent history, where like you're like taking somebody's image and you're like telling the audience that like that's who they are. You know what I mean? And I think that like so many photographers who I like love like their images, but it's like you can like see the judgment. Like you can like you when you're looking at the picture, you know exactly what that photographer thought of their subject. And sometimes it just like can be really, really cruel. And so um I try to be really cautious in my practice to not do that, you know? And I think that like this is the advantage of film over photography. I know that like these are characters and not like one to one a real person, but I feel like film oftentimes like allows a lot more nuance for this. You know what I mean? Like I think like when I watched I'm So Sorry the first time, I thought like, wow, these girls are really horrible. You know what I mean? And then I've watched it a few times since, and yeah, it's just like, yeah, they're fucking annoying, but like she's trying to do something.
There's
You know.
there's an attempt. There's like an attempt, and I think that like that's important. Is like there's really there's an attempt, and it's not like it's not like a mindless, or totally oblivious act. I mean,
Mm,
there's some of the moments, like some of the text messages, but there's also moments of like there's like this stress, and this anxiety that I think like everyone has in some capacity. Also, like the day before the film released online, I think there were the shootings in Atlanta. I think it was like a nail salon, maybe, where there were a number of, I think, Asian women shot. I might be like misremembering the event, but there was like a different racial, like tragic racial event where the shift went from like Black Lives Matter to like Asian Lives Matter the day before this film dropped, and I was like, one, do I reach out to all my Asian home, like check in on the Asian friends? Do I text them? Like I was
Jesus.
in that exact position, and I was like, no, my movie's about, like, I mean, not just about Black Lives Matter, because it's about the situation in general,
Mm.
but it's only speaking to Black lives. I was like, damn, like I'm so
Yeah.
narrow-minded. I was like put in that exact same position. So like I really like I have to believe, or like I really want to do my best to
Mm.
not tell such narrow stories, but also like not just demonize the characters, because like I found myself right in that seat. Um yeah, it's yeah, and I think the other thing too about like film is, yeah, people relate to it differently with fiction, but also like you have time to kind of like that dimension of time to like show one thing, show another, show like change. And I mean, I'm just maybe I went to film because I was just like, I don't know if I personally have like the chops to do it with the still image, like explore these ideas. Like I need other like dimensions to like convey these ideas and like work through these questions like in a ethical, somewhat ethical way. Yeah.
Hell yeah. Well, I think you do a really good job at it. So,
Thank you. I appreciate it.
um,
This is so cool. It's so cool to be able to talk about the films. This is the first. Thank you so much for playing the films and having this
hell yeah.
Q&A.
There's one more question from the audience. Somebody asked, how much time did it take to do most of the film from the initial idea?
Mm, great question. So I'm so sorry. I think I came up with the idea in like June of 2020. We shot it in mid to late August of 2020, and I finished it in like March of 2021. So that's 9 months about for that one. And I was like kind of I edited most of it myself and I was working a lot at the time, so it just took a long time. It's also my first film, so like that edit took a lot of work because there were a lot of things that weren't perfect in how we shot it. It's a big learning experience. And Ruby, I think, was conceived of in like April of 2021. We shot it in, we had first shot 2 days in like mid June of 2021. And then we like ran out of time and needed to do reshoots. We did reshoots in like late August 2021. And I finished it like March 2022. So I guess that one was like 11 months ish. So about a year
Yeah.
is what it takes. And that one was self-edited, things go faster with more money. So
Yeah. Yeah. If
yeah.
anybody out there has $1 million,
Yeah. Yeah. If anyone wants to make a movie and has the money to do it, let's make a movie. Thank everybody, whoever's watching this. Thanks for tuning
yeah.
in. I can't
Thank,
see anyone.
thank you, Chester, for being here. Thank you, everybody, for joining. And so I think we will have the two short screening back to back for a few days in Bug World. So if you want to show your friends, come back
Yeah. Bring
tomorrow.
your friends.
All right, bye, y'all.
Bye.